everyone, my name is Jen and this is going to be my January wrap-up for 2021. I will be telling you about all the books that I read in the month of January. So the first book that I read in January was Two Truths and a Lie by Sarah Pinsker, and this is a novella that I read for free on Tor.com. It was about 40 pages. And it starts out with this woman going back to her hometown because someone that she had gone to high school with had died, and she ends up volunteering to help that person's brother clean out his house, and it's just a total wreck. And while she's doing this, she is just randomly telling this guy lies to try to make her life seem more interesting. She tells him that she's been married and divorced, and she hasn't. She tells him that she has a kid back home, and she doesn't. So she's just randomly making up these lies to try to sound more interesting and make her life seem more exciting. And while she's doing this, she tells him another lie and asks him if he remembers the Uncle Bob show, which was like a kid's show where this guy tells stories, and the guy she's talking to is like, of course I remember the Uncle Bob show. My brother was on the show. And she gets really confused because she thought she had just made it up. She wasn't expecting him to remember. And then they dig through the guy's stuff some more and they find a tape of the video of the show. And she starts watching it and it's really creepy. The whole setup of the show is just really unsettling, and it has a lot of kids on the set while this guy is just sitting there telling these really weird stories. And she goes home, she tells her mom about the Uncle Bob show, and her mom's like, yeah, of course, you were on it too. And so the story just goes on from there. And it's very strange, it's very unsettling. The ending is a little odd. By the end of it, I definitely wanted some more answers to what exactly was going on. So I was a little disappointed with the ending, but overall I really enjoyed it, and I gave that one 3 stars. So the next book that I read was Imaginary Friend by Stephen Chbosky, who also wrote Perks of Being a Wallflower, and I read Perks of Being a Wallflower when I was in high school, and I was really thrown off that his next book was an adult horror when Perks of Being a Wallflower was a YA, and it just seemed like a really strange jump. So I wasn't really expecting a lot from this, because I just was kind of shocked that he went from this YA book about a kid in high school and now is going to adult horror. Imaginary Friend is about a little boy who gets lost in the woods in his hometown for 6 days. No one sees or hears from him for 6 days, and afterwards that he finally wanders out of the woods and they're like, where were you? How did you survive for 6 days? How did you finally find your way out of the woods? And he's like, oh, my imaginary friend helped me. And they try to figure out who the man was that had helped him, trying to figure out if he had been hurt or injured in any way. And he says, no, it was a very nice man. And they just can't figure out who helped him. But he is still seeing and talking to his imaginary friend that he said he met in the woods. And the story kind of develops from there. I don't want to give too much more away. This will make you afraid of deer. I have never been afraid of deer in my life, and the deer in this book are so creepy. I did not enjoy all the deer in this book. I personally loved this book. I gave it 5 stars. I think the only downside that some people might find is that the ending does have some pretty strong religious tones. So if that's not something that you enjoy in your books, then you might not enjoy the ending as much. I didn't mind it at all. I thought the whole thing was great and I loved it. And then the next book that I read this month was The Shining by Stephen King. Everybody probably already knows the synopsis for this, but the Torrance family goes to the Overlook Hotel to take care of it during the winter, and they're going to be snowed in for 6 months, and it's just going to be Jack, Wendy, and Danny the son, and while they're there, all kinds of weird things start happening. I have seen the movie a long time ago. I was like maybe 10 or 11 when I watched it, and I remember it scared me. I remember I did not enjoy watching it. So I finally wanted to read the book because I know the book is said to be very different. And there were a lot of aspects of the book that I enjoyed a little bit more than the movie, but also aspects of the movie that I liked more. I want to watch the movie again here soon so I can just kind of compare the two a little bit more. I think the biggest difference, and I guess this is kind of a spoiler for this if you don't know how it ends, in the book, I felt like it was made very clear that Jack wouldn't have hurt his family, but the hotel had just kind of completely taken over him, completely just the hotel was driving him crazy, and if it hadn't been for the hotel doing all these things, he wouldn't have gone crazy. In the movie, if I remember correctly, because it has been a long time since I've seen the movie, it seemed more like Jack just kind of went stir crazy himself and decided just kind of lost it and then hurt his family, so it was more kind of pinned on him rather than the hotel, I feel like. But I haven't seen the movie in a long time, so that might not be correct. Overall, I really enjoyed this. Definitely one of the better Stephen King novels that I've read, and I'm definitely going to be watching the movie again soon. The next book that I read this month was Venus in the Blind Spot by Junji Ito. This is a horror manga. I have read several of Junji Ito's horror mangas, and I have loved all of them. This one is a collection of short stories. There's always a lot of body horror and just really creepy imagery in his books. My favorite ones were Billions Alone, where anyone who gathers together in groups, like even small groups, end up something very bad happened to them. I don't want to spoil it for you guys because it's very shocking. The Enigma of the Amigara Fault was another one that I really enjoyed, and I had read that one before because I believe that one was also in the end of Uzumaki, so I had already read that one, but it's definitely one of my favorites because it makes me feel so claustrophobic. Like, just the idea of trying to squeeze myself through a little hole in a cave or a mountain sounds terrifying. I'm claustrophobic. Anytime I watch horror movies where someone's going down into a cave or something like that, the actual cave and tunnels of them crawling through freaks me out way more than the horror aspects of the movie, like The Descent and As Above, So Below. Watching people crawl through tiny little holes that are coming down around them is horrible for me to watch. And then the last one in this manga is Keepsake, and that one is extremely creepy too. A lot of creepy imagery. They're all really good, but those three were my favorite, and I think I gave this one 5 stars as well, and I can't wait to read more of Junji Ito's work. The next thing I read was Tender is the Flesh by Augustina Bazterrica, and I read a lot of horror. I don't get squeamish or really scared by things very easily. This book messed me up. I had been told it was super weird and very disturbing, but I've been told that about a lot of books, and I don't ever agree with it, or it is disturbing and it's just not something that sticks with me. This stuck with me. So the premise for this one is that a virus has infected all animals like pigs, cows, chickens. We can't eat meat anymore. So the government has decided that they are going to breed specific people for special meat. And everybody knows this, and everybody's more or less okay with this because they want meat. And just the cannibalism idea of it would not have been as bad, but the detail that they go into about how they prepare and slaughter these people so that they can be eaten is just so much. Like, I read this in one sitting. I couldn't put it down. I had to figure out how it was going to end. But it was all just so disturbing. The ending is very disturbing as well. After I finished this book, I had to take a little break from horror. All the books I had read so far this year had been horror. And after I finished this one, I was just like, all right, I liked it. I get what it was saying, but I need a break from horror. So after I finished up this one, I went into some fantasy books. So this was Tender as the Flesh. I think I gave it 5 stars. I think I flip-flopped back and forth a couple times between 4 and 5 stars, just because I was like, it was really well written. I guess I enjoyed it, even though it was so disturbing. But then, like, I don't know, it was weird to review this one, but I'm pretty sure I ended up giving it 5 stars. So like I said, after I finished that one, I needed a refresher from horror for just a little bit. I'm not done with it by any means. After that one, I wanted something a tad bit light. And I read Phoenix Extravagant by Yoon-Ha Lee, and this is about a non-binary artist whose country has just been taken over by this other country. They've overthrown their government and just completely infiltrated. And Jebby is trying to find a job as an artist, and it doesn't end up working out how they were expecting. They end up getting a job, but they're kind of blackmailed into it, to working for this government, and what they're wanting them to do is help them figure out the symbols that they need to paint on these machines that they are creating, and the symbols using specific paint makes these things come to life, and they can build armies out of these things, and they can build just giant machines, and they can bring them to life and have them do what they want just by painting these symbols on there. It's an amazing book. It has some really nice representation of with a non-binary character in there. The ending with this one, again, was a little strange. The ending for this might not hit for everybody, but I enjoyed it. I was fine with it, and I believe I gave this one 5 stars as well. After that, I picked up Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. This was my first Brandon Sanderson novel that I had ever read, even though I'm constantly hearing about him on BookTube, about just how amazing his fantasies are, and after I really enjoyed Phoenix Extravagant, I was ready to pick this big boy up. This is about a princess who is sent to a rival land to marry their god king because they don't want to, the country that she's from doesn't want to have a war with them, so they had created this treaty. If they send them their daughter to marry, they won't have a war. But it's obviously much more complicated than that. Even though she goes and she marries him and she does what she's supposed to, there's still unrest in the 2 kingdoms, and the war is still steadily approaching, and Siri, the princess that gets sent there, is trying to help figure out a way to prevent this war. And there are just a lot of really great characters in this book. I really enjoyed Siri. She was a great protagonist. I also really enjoyed the 2 witty mercenaries that come up into the story a little bit later on, and Lightsong, the god that doesn't like being a god, which was very entertaining for me. I just couldn't put this one down either. I would just devoured it. The whole world, all the characters, they were all amazing. The talking sword, fantastic. And I gave this one 5 stars. And I cannot wait to read more Brandon Sanderson. So if you guys have some suggestions for other Brandon Sanderson novels, please let me know. All right, the next book that I read after Warbreaker, I read Sinlin Ascends by Josiah Bancroft. And This is about Sinlin and his wife, and for their honeymoon, they go to the Tower of Babel. Sinlin has studied the Tower of Babel. He's always preaching about how amazing it is to all his students, so he's really excited to go there. They get there, they get off their train, and he immediately loses sight of his wife because there are just so many people there. It's just completely crowded and chaotic and hectic. This also gave me a very claustrophobic feel. Just the way that the crowds and everyone are described, this sounded horrible to me. And he can't find his wife. So he decides that since they got separated, his wife would be smart enough to go on and go up to the level of the tower that they had planned on spending the majority of their honeymoon at. And so he starts heading up that way, but getting there ends up being a lot more trouble than he has anticipated. And it turns out that the tower is nothing like he had read about or had been telling his students about. And there are just different dangers. And each level of the tower has its own government and rules. And if you don't follow them, then you can be executed, or they might turn you into a slave, or they might brand you, all kinds of horrible things. And it's just it was so engrossing, and all of the characters that he meets throughout were unique and different, and I really enjoyed all of them. I didn't realize that this was a series when I picked it up. This is going to be a 4-book series. There are 3 out right now, and I believe the 4th one is coming out in November. So I will be reading the next 2 in this book very soon, and that way I will be ready for November. And I definitely gave this one 5 stars as well. So that was the last book that I finished in January, but I also started Elantris by Brandon Sanderson. I am about 35% into this. I'm definitely enjoying it. Not quite as much as Warbreaker. It's a little slower for sure, but I'm still really enjoying the world building and the characters and everything that's going on. But it's very interesting, and I can't wait to see where that goes. I was hoping to finish it this month, but I did not. Alright, so that is the end of my January wrap-up. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please let me know in the comments below if you have read any of these or if you have any suggestions for me that are similar to these, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.